It's a real gut punch, isn't it? One of the most shocking things that can happen at work. One minute, you're doing your job. The next, you're being told to grab your stuff and leave. Right now. No notice, no warning, you're just out. If this has happened to you or you're worried it might, you absolutely need to understand your rights. So let's break down what this is all about and, more importantly, what you can do.
It all happens in a flash. Your head's spinning, you've got a million questions flying around, but the biggest one, the one that's probably screaming in your mind is, wait, can they even do that? Is this legal?
Well, it turns out there's actually a name for this. In Australian workplace law, they call it a summary dismissal. And just knowing that official term is the very first step toward getting your power back.
Okay, so let's get right into it. What exactly is a summary dismissal? Because it's not just getting fired, it's a very specific and pretty serious move an employer can make.
Here's the official definition. A summary dismissal is when you're fired on the spot with absolutely no notice period, and the only reason an employer is allowed to do this is because of alleged serious misconduct. Now, pay close attention to that word, alleged. We're going to circle back to that because it's a huge deal.
And let's be crystal clear here. This is a huge, huge deal. It's a severe action with massive consequences for your life, your income, your career. And you know what? A ton of cases show that it is very, very often not handled fairly.
So when can an employer actually get away with this? They can't just do it because they're having a bad day. The law sets a really high bar, and it all boils down to that phrase we just heard, serious misconduct.
This is the hurdle your employer has to clear. The behavior has to be so bad that it basically shatters the trust in your employment relationship, making it pretty much impossible for you to keep working there. We're talking about actions that create a real, immediate risk to the business or to other people.
So what does that look like in the real world? Well, the Fair Work Act gives some pretty clear examples. We're talking about the big stuff, theft or fraud, assault or sexual harassment, being so intoxicated at work that you're a danger, or constantly refusing to follow perfectly reasonable instructions from your boss. These are the kinds of things that might justify an instant dismissal.
But here's the twist, and this is the part you really, really need to hear. Even if you're accused of something serious, the ball is in your employer's court. They can't just point a finger. They have to actually investigate and prove it. And, this is critical, they have to follow a fair process. No exceptions.
Okay, but what about your own time? Can something you do on a Saturday night get you fired on Monday morning? Generally, no. Your private life is your private life. But there are a few important exceptions where that line gets blurry. Your life outside of work can become a workplace problem if there's a real link back to your job. If what you did damages your relationship with your employer, if it hurts the company's public image, or if it goes completely against what you're paid to do, then yeah, it could be grounds for dismissal.
All right, I need you to really lock in for this next part. This is probably the most important thing we're going to talk about. If you've been dismissed on the spot, this is your crucial shield. It's a concept called procedural fairness. If you remember one thing, just one thing from our chat today, make it this. In the eyes of the law, how you were fired is every bit as important as why you were fired. I'm going to say that again. How they did it is just as important as why they did it. This is everything.
So what is this procedural fairness thing? It's your right to a fair go. It means your employer can't just make a snap judgment. They are legally required to properly investigate what happened, and most importantly, they have to give you a real chance to tell your side of the story.
So let's turn this into a quick checklist. Ask yourself these 5 questions about how you were fired. Number 1, did they clearly explain the exact allegations against you? 2, did they give you a reasonable amount of time to prepare and give your response? 3, did they actually listen to your side of the story before making a decision? 4, did they offer to let you bring a support person to the meeting? And 5, did they give you the dismissal notice in writing? If you're answering no to any of these, that's a massive red flag.
And here is the absolute game changer. Even if the reason for firing you was legit, even if the misconduct actually happened, if your employer failed to follow a fair process, you could still have a strong case for unfair dismissal. That's how much the how matters.
So you've heard all this. You've gone through that checklist and you're thinking, hang on, what happened to me doesn't sound right at all. So, what do you do now? Let's talk about taking action.
I want you to look at this number. Just look at it. This is probably the most important number in this entire process.
That number, 21, is the number of days you have. The second you are dismissed, a clock starts ticking.
You have exactly 3 weeks to file an unfair dismissal claim with the Fair Work Commission. And let me tell you, this deadline is non-negotiable. It is incredibly strict. Now, before you race off, there are 2 main eligibility boxes you need to tick. First, you generally need to have been working there for at least 6 months. That bumps up to 12 months if it was a small business with fewer than 15 employees. And second, your annual salary usually needs to be below a certain cap.
And that cap is called the high income threshold. Right now, that number is $183,100 a year.
Now, it's really important to know that this income limit might not apply to you if your job is covered by an award or an enterprise agreement. So that's definitely something you'll want to check.
And all of this brings us back to the one big question that only you can answer. Now that you have this information, now that you know about serious misconduct, and especially about procedural fairness, I want you to take a step back. Forget the shock and the anger for a second, and ask yourself honestly, was it truly fair?